Okay, the last part of Section 3, the Roaring Twenties, we're going to look at is the Harlem Renaissance. Now, this has actually worked out really well. It's perfect timing because we just finished the Black History Month project, and now we're going to be looking back at one of the first times in American history where African Americans had a sense of pride or a feeling of pride in their culture, and that spread beyond, right, their immediate surroundings, spread across the country. Okay, here are your objectives for this section. Okay, you're going to need to be able to describe how the country reacted to racial tensions. Now, tensions are going to mean, another word would be conflict. Right, we're going to have conflict between African Americans and whites in the North, and you need to be able to explain why they happened and how people reacted to them. And then the second one is the significance of the Harlem Renaissance. Now, some of you picked people for your Roaring Twenties project that were key players in the Harlem Renaissance, so that should be pretty easy for you. Others, you might have to go back and watch over that section again, or glance in your textbook, or all else fails, start talking to one of those people that have it. That would obviously be the best course of action. All right, so starting first, we're looking at the expectations for African Americans. Now, based on the pictures that I've shown you here, all right, all three pictures, okay, you see them all packed up. You see large families, right? And you see them, this is a train station down here, you see them preparing to travel, right? Now, one of the things that we're going to look at is the Great Migration. Now, I know we talked about this at the end of World War I, right? But remember, social studies is not linear, meaning it's not this happens, then this happens, then this happens. A lot of the things we talk about in different chapters are going on at the same time, but you have to kind of separate them in order to keep things a little bit more organized. All right, so we're looking at the changes that African Americans faced during this time. Obviously, the economic impact or the economic draw is going to be in the North. The South was still stuck in a sharecropping system, right, where African Americans had to share the land, right, with the white plantation owners. Remember, we talked about that after Reconstruction, right? So they see opportunity in the North, and the opportunity is going to be working in factories, right? As businesses start to expand during the 1920s, they're looking to, and started during World War I, they're going to start looking for more workers, right? So the name of the period is the Great Migration. We know birds migrate, all right? So migrate would mean to move. Remember, maybe we can link the M's there together, all right? So moving from one place to another. All right, now here's the map I was telling you about. Okay, this is showing you the movement of African Americans, all right, from the South to different parts of the country. Now, if you were to follow the arrows, you're going to see African Americans settling in the major cities. All right, not just in the east or the north, but also heading out here to the west. Now, what I want to make sure that you remember is that they go to the north for factory jobs, right, or looking for new means of new opportunity or new employment. All right, so if you could just glance that or jot that down there, you could just jot down there that they left the north looking for factory jobs. That's definitely going to come back, all right? And you can see there's different corridors that they're going to travel, all right? That's what the different color of the arrows are for. But particularly based on this map, you see them settling in, right, major urban centers. All right, and now here we start getting into the problem of racism and discrimination. And one of our activities in the last section, all right, dealt with why did African Americans not share in the prosperity, and a big reason is they're still facing racism and discrimination. They're not being viewed as equals. All right, yes, they have the right to vote, but as we know in the South, the KKK was active. The KKK is going to come back in this period as African Americans start coming to the North and competing with whites, all right, for jobs in factories. All right, so the Ku Klux Klan, we know their main tactic was fear and violence, right? But race riots, that would be any kind of physical confrontation, right, because of race. So you're going to look at violence between both races, all right? Just a couple newspaper headlines, right? Obviously, primary source picture here. This would be artist rendition, all right? Now, did some get that graphic? Absolutely, all right? But a lot of it was merely just competition over living quarters, over jobs in northern cities. Right. How did African Americans respond to the lack of opportunity in the North? Well, several different ways. First one, Marcus Garvey is going to set up the UNIA, right, where he tries to urge African Americans. It was also known as the Back to Africa movement. He tried to organize African Americans to leave the United States, right, in search of better opportunity and go back to Africa and set up their own nation. Right? He ultimately failed, but at least the idea of uniting African Americans, right, was that first step towards the civil rights movement we have in the 1960s. Right? And then the NAACP, they're probably the most effective at helping African Americans. We talked about it during a previous chapter. It comes back again. Remember, it's all kind of going on at the same time. Right? They're going to work, you can see the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, right, work to help enforce any of the laws that government has passed to assist African Americans, right? But more importantly, they're going to work to end segregation. Now, as you remember from Plessy versus Ferguson, separate but equal, right, separation and segregation mean the same thing. So if we can key on the SE at the beginning of it, that will go a long ways towards helping us remember, right, segregation means separation. Right, and then here's the biggie, right? The Harlem Renaissance. In 7th grade, you looked at what the word Renaissance meant. All right, Renaissance is simply going to mean rebirth. So I want you to write up at the top here, all right, where it says French for rebirth. All right, so if you ask Madame Barbanel, Renaissance, you know, I don't know if it's literally, but means rebirth. So Harlem, a section of New York City, it becomes the largest black urban community in the world, meaning most of the African Americans, or had a large percentage of African Americans, all right, living in Harlem itself. And it kind of became a source of pride, right, where they began to look back on their history, right, and you know, talk about the music, poetry, painting, things like that. And it became a source of inspiration for African Americans all across the country and all across the world. All right, so Harlem Renaissance was that African American culture, right, coming back, being reborn, right, within that small section of New York City. All right, and you can see some of the paintings. I mean, obviously the Roaring '20s, so you got the jazz music, you got the dancing. This would be a painting from the time period. You can see the vibrant colors, the happiness, all right, the carefree spirit of the 1920s. Right, this is almost the exact opposite of the race riots and the KKK doing their thing. Right, and then here are some of the individuals. Like I said, some people use these individuals for their projects, right, which is great. If you want to know additional information, obviously we can talk about it. You can ask them. They might be doing their newscast, and you can learn from it there. Right, but you have several different avenues. All right, the Apollo Theater up here was kind of the location of the jazz. All right, the jazz rebirth in New York City. Right, you got musicians: Duke Ellington, Billie Holiday, Louis Armstrong. Right down here, Zora Neale Hurston. These would be famous writers. All right, just that symbol, that rebirth of culture, to give something for African Americans to be proud of. Okay, Langston Hughes, probably one of the single biggest people associated with the Harlem Renaissance. You've done poems by him in Mrs. Elston's class. Okay, his poems were a source of inspiration to African Americans who were struggling. All right, so if you look down at his poem here, hold fast to dreams, for if dreams die, life is a broken winged bird that cannot fly. Right? He's simply telling people to look to the future. Things are going to get better. You can't lose, you can't lose hope. You can't let your dreams be broken. Right? And then once again, jazz music, we talked about it in the last section, right? That slowly starts to make its way from New Orleans, where it was originated, into Harlem as well. Okay, and now here's the downside of this particular period, is you have a group of people, all right, a group of people who were unhappy with what goes on in the Roaring '20s, and they feel that all of the work of the progressive era, right, meaning we took a step forward by the government getting involved in helping people, and then we ultimately are going to take a step back because government starts to focus more on business and less on people. Right, so they're like just very upset with government, very upset with the United States, and many of them are going to leave the United States and go settle in other cities around the world. Right, so the lost generation, what they're referred to as. And then this is kind of the last part here. This is kind of our link to the next chapter. All right, we do the Great Depression in the 1920s. All right, the soaring economy brought prosperity, meaning things are going really well, into the 1920s. Right, and then we're going to see in 1929 all of that excitement, all of that growth, all of that money is going to come to a screeching halt. Everybody was doing really well, and then bam, something's going to happen that's going to change the country forever. All right. So Harlem Renaissance, race tensions, race riots, the KKK, Langston Hughes, right? Those are all biggies, right? And if you need to go back and do things, go back and look at things. Some of your vocab, your extra credit stuff deals with this section, all right? By all means, go back and look at it.